Good morning, everyone. My name is Rick, and this morning we're going to look at a number of different ways to make selections. I use Photoshop Elements 15. These methods would be the same in Photoshop, the big version, and most other photo editing software will have either these exact tools or something very similar. Now, before we start, the first thing we need to do is make a copy of our image. We don't want to work on the original image, so come up here to the layer for background and right click and say duplicate layer. Okay, now we'll shut this lower layer off. That preserves our original image so that we don't have any impact on it. Now, the first thing we're going to do is this locomotive has a number of different colors in it, and by the way, railroads are a favorite topic of mine and colorizing is my hobby, so this is going to be directed mostly at people that would enjoy colorizing, but it will also apply to those who are trying to struggle with learning how to make accurate selections. So the first thing we're going to do is we have the zoom menu here up, and we're going to zoom in on this little area right here. One of the things I want you to realize is that you don't have to make the whole selection at once. In other words, we want to look at these lines here. Those lines are going to be orange in the photo, but we don't have to do all the lines that you saw in the whole image. We can start with a small chunk and work our way out. And that's what we're going to do. Now, there are several different ways to make selections. It depends on what you're trying to do and how you're trying to use it. Let me show you an older one that I used to use and still do use sometime. It involves making a selection while you paint. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go up here and we're going to select a new layer. We want a solid color layer, and we're going to make it a pretty strong orange. Now, that's stronger than we're going to need, so let's tone it down just a little bit. Now, that may not be the accurate or exact color. It really doesn't matter at this point. We're just getting started. So let's click OK. And then the next thing we want to do with the bounding box around the mask, we want to hold down the Control key and press I. That reverses it. So now all the color is covered up, and basically anywhere we paint color, we're going to be making a mask at the same time, and I'll show you what I mean. So let's go over here and select the brush tool. For this, I want to use a hard edge tool. You can make the brush larger or smaller based on what your needs are. In this case, that's pretty good. It's smaller than this, which means I'll have to go over it twice, but that's fine. It's not a problem at all. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place my cursor up here so that the top edge is just covering what I want to paint. And I'm going to hold down the Shift key and I'm going to just press the left mouse button. And then I'm going to move over here a ways, and I'm going to press the left mouse button while I continue to hold down the Shift key, press the left mouse button again. And what Elements does is connect the dots, if you will, and you make shorter and shorter connections up here. Then I'm going to drop down here and start again. I'm going to press the Shift key, and I'm going to click there, and then I'm going to work my way back to finish filling this area in. This is one method of filling in a color, and what you've done, and I'll show you what I mean in just a moment, you've painted on this second copy of the image, and that's fine. But you can also right click here in the layer mask, and you can say add mask to selection, and what it's going to do is it's going to create a mask for you based on the color. So that's one way you can get a mask while you paint. So a lot of people tell you to create a mask that's all this color, and then save it and name it so you can get back to it. You really don't have to, because the color allows you to make a selection based on that. All right, I'm going to leave that there, And I'm going to move on to another method now. We still have some red here that we want to create, so I'm going to go now to the polygonal lasso tool, and we're going to click on that. And down here in this area, down here at the bottom, you see this, which is just create a new selection. Here's add to a selection. Here's subtract from a selection. We want to add to this existing selection. Now this tool works by placing dots, which are then connected by lines. As you go around the curve, you use short line sections and or segments, and as you go into the straight, you can use longer ones. Let me show you what I mean. Start inside this selection here and left click your mouse, then drag it out here, and you see the line that's coming out. Make a short selection and click again and again, and just work your way down and around. Now you might think these things are going to show up as straight lines when the thing is done, when the image is done, but I can assure you they're so short in the overall image that they're not about to begin to show up. So let's go up here, and I'm trying to show you now you can take this in small bites. You don't have to try and do this whole section of red lines all at once. So go back inside here. Now when we come over to where we started, right now you see a little plus sign there at the cursor. When you get up here to where you can close the circle, you see a closed circle. If you click there while that zero or closed circle is showing, you will make another selection. Well, wait a minute. This one didn't turn red. The reason that one didn't turn red is because we never painted that one red. You can do that easily at any point in time. You can do it now. You can do it later. I'll do it now just to show you. Select your brush. Make sure you have a hard edged brush selected, because all you want to do is fill in. Go over here and make sure your mask is selected, and then just paint. And that's how you can fill it in. Alright, now let's look at another way to make a selection. It's kind of a combination of using the brush tool and yet we're not. We're going to go over here and we're going to select the quick selection tool, and we're going to drop down here and we're going to select the brush. And we want to use a brush. We're going to do this section right in here, and we want to use a brush that's just slightly smaller than that. You can change the size of the brush by pressing the left bracket key to make it smaller, the right bracket key to make it larger. Okay, so we still want a hard edge. We're going to make it a little bit smaller, and we're going to start inside the selection. We want to make sure this is set to add. So we start inside the selection, hold down just as you did before when you were painting, but now you're going to paint a selection, not a color. So hold down the shift key, get yourself lined up right here where the edge starts, and click, and you'll notice it added that. Now you can move in short jumps across here, and as you see, Elements will connect the dots and give you a new selection. Now let go of the shift key and let's drop down here and start at the bottom. Hold the shift key down. Let's work our way back. And we come over here. And again, it's not important where we stop. We just want to make sure we're connected to that section there. Now we've got a problem in that this grab iron here is a different color. So what we want to do is we want to go down here at the bottom again at the left, and we want to change the selection from add to subtract. We want to use the left bracket key to make the button or the bar or the brush a little bit smaller, and we want to go outside the existing selection. We want to hold down the shift key and click, and you notice it removes that little bit, but when we go down here to this side and we line it up and click again, it takes a slice out of it. And that looks pretty good, right, the way it stands. Okay, so there's another way to make a selection. Let's go ahead and get crazy and paint this one in too, so that you can see it doesn't select the bar. Now we're going to look at one other way you can work with things, and I'm going to show you how, using again the lasso tool and making sure we're on add, we're going to go right down in here. So we're starting inside this, hold down the don't have to hold down Shift key, excuse me. Just click in there and draw this out. Now this area here wants to be the dark color. This area is actually gray, but I'm going to extend my selection into this gray area and come all the way up here like this, and then I'm going to go up here to the top and I'm going to connect this together, and then I'm going to down here and I'm going to make short little line segments again, connecting this up to make this circle. And we'll come on down here, and now we'll go over here and find the end of our selection. Sometimes they're hard to see. There's the O. Now that looks good, except for the fact that we have collected in the process some of this section here that is not supposed to be orange. So let's show you how we can get rid of that. And again, I'm showing you a variety of different ways. You might not use all of them in this particular instance. You may only use some of them, or you may choose to use them all. It just depends on what works best for you, what you feel comfortable with. So let's select the brush tool. We're going to go down here now. We're going to make sure we have subtract selected. I'm going to use the right bracket key to make the brush tool much larger. See, that gives me a circular edge, and I can lay that circular edge right up here like this in the area that we want to take away, and I just click. And I just march that circular edge right on around until I've cleaned it up. And now we can come down here, select the brush tool. We can also, if you don't want to select the brush tool, you can select the fill tool. I prefer to just use the brush. Sometimes when you make a fill, the area where the two things connect leaves you a blank spot. But let's go ahead and show you that. Let's use the fill, and let's just put it in here. And there you go. And you see the little line right there and here. They don't seem to catch up together tightly, and I'm not sure why that is. So you still have to come back with the brush tool and clean that up. Let's hit Control and Z. That undoes what I've done, so you know how to do that. Let's redo it now and just hit plain Z, and that brings up the zoom menu with fit screen. There's our selection and the color, and you can hit Control and D to deselect, and there you have it. That's how I make selections. There is another way that you can use using this tool here, and you come down here and use the quick selection tool. Now, I don't really like the way the quick selection tool works for these fine things like this. I want to show you two more ways that you can make selections. And they are good for different kinds of situations. The first thing we're going to do is use the quick selection brush down here. You notice I've got selection brush turned on, and we're going to use the quick selection brush down here at the bottom. The quick selection brush in a color image will make selections based on color. Well, we don't have color per se, but the black and the white and the gray, these three shades of color right here in the center of the image, will kind of work for us the same. So let's go ahead and hit Z and zoom into this little section right here. And we're going to select the quick selection and add. And what we're going to do is take a look at the size of our cursor. Again, you can make it larger or smaller in this, just like you can in others. We want to make sure that we have a hard brush, okay, and we're going to make it small, because the smaller it is, the less likely it is to jump across. If you make it really large, it's going to select very large areas, and we want to just select something that's very narrow. So let's just place our cursor in here somewhere and start to draw down across this black or dark orange area that we want to paint. Now you notice it looks pretty gross. I'm still holding down the selection key, the left mouse key, and when I let the left mouse key go, it's going to be smoothed out substantially. So you can see what's happened there. Now this can be quicker than the way I did it. I'm going to go ahead and change this now to the regular selection, quick selection, and I'm going to clean this up a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit right in there. I'm going to add a little bit right across here so we get into this color good. and I'm going to hold down the Alt, which will reverse it. If you look down here, it'll reverse it to subtract. While I hold down the Alt key, I'm just going to go down here and clean up these two corners a little bit. So it's a little bit tighter into where it ought to be. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and paint this in just like we did before. And by painting it in, we won't have to worry about those hard edges. But I want you to look at something, and I have not figured out how to fix this. Maybe one of y'all can. I've got everything set to hardness, but you see this overspray along here? All along this edge, and up here in this edge. You don't see it on here where we made the selections by drawing the line segments and connecting them together, or painting with the brush. We don't see this situation, and I don't understand what causes it, to be very honest with you, but that's one of the reasons I don't use this, particularly for small items like this. Alright, let's just leave that alone. Control D to deselect it. Let's C to zoom out. Now I want to show you one more thing, and I'm going to change something and fudge a little bit to show it to you, but I'm going to show you anyway because I think it's pretty important. We're going to zoom into this area again, and we're going to have to fix these things again because I had to stop the video earlier and back it up. So let's go in here and paint these places back in so they don't look that bad. What I want to do is show you how you can use this orange selection to paint this yellow area here. Now to do that, I'm going to have to fill this in, okay? And just bear with me a minute and you'll see what I'm doing and why, but I'm going to go ahead and paint this as if that bar wasn't there. By doing that, I make myself a closed selection here. If I had not done that and I were trying to make a selection like I'm going to show you, it would have ran out through that hole and dribbled all over the picture, and we didn't want that to happen. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have this on. We're going to go over here and we're going to select the lasso tool again, and we're just going to pick a bunch of points that overlap this orange color. Okay? Now you might look a little weird, but hey, bear with me a minute and I'll show you something. We're going to close this up. Okay, now we've got a selection. It's not any particular color at this moment, but what I want to show you is this. You can use the orange selection to trim this down. You go here and on the layer box, you right click, and instead of add mask to selection like we've been doing, you say subtract mask, and watch what happens. Suddenly this bounding box that we had selected has been trimmed to fit the yellow. Now there's one more thing you can do. Let's say we want to fill this with yellow. Usually you don't use this for small sections, but I'm going to show you this also. If you go up here and you say I want to make a solid color, and you click on the solid color layer, it's going to fill that area in whatever color you have picked. Now it should be let's say it should be gray. I'm not sure what color it should be at this point, I forget, but it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to fill it with a color and move on. Now you don't have to paint this when you have a selection made and you select fill. Okay, you create a fill layer or solid color layer. It will automatically place that color in the area that's selected. If no selection is made, it will just create a solid color layer that you can use however you want to use it. But when you do have a selection made, you can fill it right away. So here you have a situation where you've used an existing selection to trim a new selection so they match perfectly. Let's hit Z and zoom out, and there you have it. I should have made that a different color so it would stand out. Let's make it yellow. Fine. Okay, there you have it. You can see what you can do. These are several different ways to make selections. I hope they've given you some ideas. They've shown you the ways that I use selections, and possibly moved you closer to your goal of being able to use Photoshop Elements in Photoshop and Colorize, or whatever it is you care to do. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this, I'm going to put some information that you can visit my website, or not, excuse me, not my website, visit my Facebook pages, and Contact me by email if you have any questions. Thanks and have a great day. Bye-bye.